Welcome everybody to the Cyber Week. Great to have you here. And also, I was warned from that. Yeah. Before we'll get into what the Israeli Cyber National Directorate is doing, I have the honor to introduce you Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Netanyahu, the stage is yours.
Shalom. Thank you all. I can see none of you, but I hear you. I'm glad to be here with Minister of Energy Steinitz, with Professor, with Yitzhak, and I want to say that I've just had a very good meeting with Dan Brouillette of the United States government, and I'm glad to see sort of all of you. Here's my speech in a nutshell. We're in the midst of a revolution. The revolution has at the heart of the machine cybersecurity. This creates enormous challenges and creates enormous opportunities. Our job is to seize the opportunities and meet the challenges. End of speech. Okay. Now the speech in detail. Greater detail. We're in a revolution because of the geometric growth of industries or services that are associated with the confluence of big data, artificial intelligence, and connectivity. This creates new applications for old industries and new industries entirely. An example of a new industry here in Israel, here's an example. Israel's burgeoning car industry. You've not driven in Israeli cars recently? Of course you have. What is this? I didn't ask for these. I'll ask for slides, you put them on. Don't put anything on yet, okay? Just listen to me. It's hard. We'll try anyway, okay? Okay. Yeah, you can give it. It's good. It's good. Good. All right. Oh, yes. We create new industries. New industries. Israel has a car industry. The car industry comes about after we tried an old car industry, which you don't have. I really should have that slide of this fiberglass car that we had 50 years ago, okay? When I was a young officer, I was driving in such a car. One day I leaned on it, my elbow went right through it, okay? We could not compete because it was based on scale on the production of chassis, scale advantages in the production of engines or tires. We didn't have scale, we couldn't compete. That went down the tubes, okay? Today, there's a new car industry because very soon 85% of the value of a car will be software. 15% all the rest. A car is essentially becoming a computer on wheels. Now we can compete. Now we have a car industry, roughly 500 cars dealing mostly in smart mobility, but in other factors too. One of these companies, as you know, Mobileye, was sold to Intel for $15 billion. Most of these companies, the 500, didn't exist 7 years ago. Most of these companies didn't exist. So that's coming as rapidly as possible, as you can imagine, creating new opportunities. Second example, digital health. Israel has the most robust database of any country and the most diversified database because we have people who came from 100 lands, which documents the medical records of Israelis over the last 20 years. If you go into a hospital in Beersheba and you live in Tel Aviv, you just plug in that card and you know everything you have to know to treat this patient. But this creates the possibility of personalized medicine, of preventive medicine, of running a lot of programs, a lot of potential developments that could occur. We have to decide. We put in $1 billion shekels. That's about $250 million. Not a lot, $250,000 for such a project, and it could, I think, revolutionize medicine. We have to see. Third aspect, precision agriculture. These are drones in the sky, sensors at the bottom, where we have drip agriculture and drip irrigation, and so we can target through the use of big data, AI, and connectivity. We can actually target the water and the nutrients that we give to, not to the individual plant, but very close to it, creating enormous savings, and it goes on and on and on and on. This is a revolution. For most countries and most companies, it's called disruption. It's true. It's a big disruption, but it creates vast opportunities. The market share, by market share, the 10 largest companies 10 years ago have radically been transformed today. And we have today, do you have this slide? Anyone here have this slide? Do you have that slide of the 10 largest companies? No? Who's doing this? No? No? Oh, it's somewhere here. Okay. No? Wow. The 10 largest companies in the world 10 years ago were, 5 of them were energy companies. They're all gone. And all of them now, in one way or the other, are IT companies. All of those companies today have major research organizations in Israel, and sometimes their primary research organization outside their home country. So we're in the midst of a great revolution, and it's creating exceptional opportunities for those who can seize them. Israel can seize them. We can seize them because we have a sunk cost that is related to your field. And I'll talk about cyber in a second. It's important to understand that Israel has invested more than any other country proportionately, and probably in the West, other than the United States, more than any other country absolutely in IT. We invest in IT for our security. We invest vast sums of money, probably number 2 in the world, in the Western world. Vast sums of money in our military intelligence, which goes to the army, to the Mossad, to Shin Bet, to other arms as well. So we create an enormous number of knowledge workers, out of which come Don't put it out. Who's dealing with the slides? Get that person out of there. You're confusing people. They're looking back. I'm talking. I can see now, as my eyes get accustomed to the dark, that they're looking here and what is he saying? Don't show anything, okay, yet. Okay. So we have created an enormous investment in human capital, people who can deal with the internet, can deal with the ramifications of this revolution, both as workers and as entrepreneurs. And this is what we did in Israel. We took this sunk cost and created a business environment for it. And that's essentially what has happened in Israel in the last 20 years. We moved from a highly controlled economy, not quite socialist, but semi-socialist economy, to a free market economy. So that if you wanted to come out of the army or the Mossad and create your own company, you wouldn't have to pay 70 or 75% marginal tax rates because you would be here. Okay, we made it very easy to do that, and as a result, we have a spectacular growth, obviously, in all these industries, but especially in the one industry that I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, cyber. Cyber is essential for the growth of anything that we're talking about. Anything. You know IoT, you know all those things that are coming. Nothing of this geometric growth is possible without the accompanying cybersecurity, and we intend to be world leaders in that field. I think a few years ago, I put a goal and I said, we're going to be among the top 5 cyber powers in the world. I think we've achieved that, more than achieved that. And the factor that makes it happen is the combination of government commitment and military commitment to that goal on the one side, and the startups that emanate from the military investment and the state investment in these things in an open business environment on the other hand. So here's what has happened. Now show a slide. Show a slide here. I'll tell you which slide. God, I've never had this happen before. This will require debriefing. Number of cyber companies in Israel. Right. So you can see the growth, and I don't have to explain more than that. By the way, the same thing, car companies, digital health companies, you name it. Agricultural, high-tech companies, and so on. That's unbelievable. Second, show the private investments in cybersecurity in Israel. Yep. You can see it growing, growing, growing. Statistics, you can read them very quickly. Go ahead, next one. Exports over 5 billion in 2018, investments 1.7 billion projected, investments first 2 quarters of 19 over 850 million, so we'll cross that. Cybersecurity companies, we've already said over 500, and exits in 2019, 1.5 billion. By the way, I want fewer exits. I want them to grow. But I'm not going to enforce it because I think markets are smarter than politicians and even prime ministers. Can you believe that? Okay. So here's what we're doing. We have created, we're creating in the Negev, in Beersheba, which I hope will be the place where you next meet, this cybersecurity complex. You'll see the CERT, which is our National Control Center. I strongly recommend that you visit it, although we couldn't fit everyone. Yigal, could we? No. But please try to come there. You'll see an amazing center, I think, that has now become a standard for the entire world. The IDF NSA units are supposed to be very close there. We're working on it. There's a cyber park, call it Cyber Spark, which is 100 meters away, and the university right across the tracks connecting to Tel Aviv. So basically what you see is military, academic, and and business institutions lined very closely to enable this fermentation to take place. It's critical for us, and we have to do 2 things. This is really the 2 things that we have to do. We have to keep on investing, and we're going to do it anyway, because we need it for our national defense, in our national cyber capabilities. That's one thing that we do. The second thing that we're going to do is what not to do. What not to do is to get in the way of the business side of it. Now, it's impossible not to regulate somewhat, but my principal role has been not to over-regulate. And guess what? The minute this industry begins to percolate and grow and overflow, then the demands for regulating it, as you would regulate a weapons industry, abound. But I think we have to take the risk, and it's a considerable risk, of regulating less in order to have, in order to grow more. And that's the decision that I have taken and that Israel has taken, and that's why you see those curves going where they're going. What this means is opportunity for you. It means an opportunity to avail yourself of the talent, ingenuity, and experience that exists in Israel. And here's the third thing that we're doing. We're encouraging international associations, both government to government, in cooperation with, on the questions of cybersecurity, a very complex issue. And we have, as I just told Dan Bruet, we have today unbelievable cooperation, first with our great and irreplaceable ally, the United States of America. We cooperate in cybersecurity as never before, and in many other fields of intelligence. And the second is we also encourage foreign companies to come here. We even have a training program, trainees who come here for several weeks or several months. And this is jointly subsidized by foreign governments and to some extent the Israeli side. And people come here and they become ambassadors after they experience the experience of Israeli startups. I think this is very valuable in the present and in the future, because we're already living the future. This is our policy in a nutshell. You can see can you show Israeli cybersecurity, academic research? You see 7 academic research centers, 280 researchers, top 10 in academic program, top 10%, and 15 million invested in academic research. It's more. but through other programs. Never mind about that, yeah? And you can see our cybersecurity, cyber diplomacy, 85 international partners, 28 international agreements, 80 international delegations last year, 200 international trainees last year, and that's the training program that I told you about, 4 international conferences last year, and cooperation with the World Bank and the IADB. Last slide. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, that's a hijacked plane. I want to talk about cybersecurity just as an example. This is a microcosm of how important this cybersecurity is today. That is me up there, I think, in one of those white Sarbalim. How do you say Sarbal? Overall, right. Okay. Well, that's 50% me because I don't know if I was on the left wing or on the right wing of this Sabina airline. Anyway, it was hijacked, and the way you'd stop the hijacking then was to burst through the doors and do whatever we did. Same thing happened later in Entebbe and elsewhere. This was the way that we protect. The way we protect it is put armed guards or have security forces ready to burst into hijacked planes, or later a whole industry that developed in Israel for mechanized locks on doors for pilots, separating the pilots, maintaining the security of the cockpit and so on. That's one way to deal with hijackings. It was not ineffective. It was good. It was effective. But it's very expensive. Okay. Here's another way. Next slide. Yeah, that's a plane too. That plane was not going to be hijacked. That plane from Sydney to Abu Dhabi was going to be exploded at midair. And we found out through our cyber activities, we found out that ISIS was going to do this. And so we alerted Australian police and they stopped this before it happened. That's a more effective way of doing this. I say this because this particular incident leaked in the press, so I can talk about it. If you multiply that 50 times, that will give you an idea of the contribution that Israel has made to prevent major terrorist operations, especially by ISIS, in dozens of countries, and most of those cases were foiled because of our activities in cybersecurity. So this affects every country in the world. It affects every person in the world. It affects them not only in aviation and transportation, it affects them in everything, and with IoT, literally in everything. This is coming. The revolution is here. Israel has seized the opportunities and is meeting the dangers, and we invite you to do the same with us in partnership. That's truly the end of speech. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.